All right, so we got some very good news on the whole destroy and burn the NCAA front. Jalen Green, who is universally around the number 3 player in the class of 2020 high school class, has decided he's going to go to the G League, along with former Michigan commit and 5-star Isaiah Todd. They could potentially be joined by Greg Brown, Jalen Johnson, and Jalen Suggs, which they are all potentially going to the G League. And they would make a lot more than they would in college, which is making the assumption that these college programs are paying these guys under the table, which has more or less been confirmed for us. But I mean, come on. $100,000 won the DeAndre Ayton sweepstakes at Arizona. He was like one of the 5 best players in that high school class. It's probably not that hard to outbid them because Greg Brown's supposed to be making around $200,000 to $250,000. He's nowhere near the prospect that DeAndre Ayton was. So, yeah, the money is gonna make some of these prospects go straight to the G League rather than even considering college. But to me, this is the best case scenario for most of the top US talent. Okay, but for myself as an athlete, I was a 3-star at best. But track doesn't do that sort of thing, so I really have no idea what I was as far as stars, but how these 5-star future millionaire professional athletes think, I'm not sure, but to me, the G League would be the best play. You can make a clean, legal, over the table $100,000 to $500,000. They're paying for your education whenever you do decide to go further your education. And from a financial standpoint, you also gain autonomy that you would not have had you gone to college. For example, these guys like Jalen can go talk to Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, New Balance, whoever they want. Or hell, big baller brand if they want to, and go get a shoe deal on top of their Jalen's $500,000 to go play a year in the G League. And you can go, like, say if you wanted to sign autographs for money or something like that, you could do that. And you could go advertise for businesses and pretty much do whatever you want because it's your name, it's your likeness, and you're able to monetize that, which you are not able to do in NCAA currently. And for a guy, for example, from this past class, Khalil Whitney, he was pretty bad at Kentucky. He could have went G League, made $100,000, got a nice little shoe deal, had his education paid for regardless, and then have those other streams of revenue such as advertising for, let's just say, a local car dealership or something like that. He could have had money from that, went back to go to college, and even if he did crap the bed in the G League or whatever, then teams like NBA teams, when it came draft time, they could have said, well, he was playing against these former college standouts or whatever, and they might give him a chance still. But if he's at Kentucky and he craps the bed, like, he's probably going to be a 4-year player now, and then whatever happens to his professional career after that happens. But I feel like this could have been a lot better for him had he gone the G League route. But I mean, come on. Darius Bazley was like a 4-star recruit, and New Balance gave him $1 million just to sit out a year and sign with him. Imagine what a guy like Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, or any of those guys could have gotten these various shoe companies. Another thing that I like about this is that the G League and the NBA seem to be taking a firm stance on wanting to develop these guys more than just have them grind out as many games as possible for them, like a college really would. Because college, you're going to be playing 30 to 40 games, depending on how well your team does in the tournament. 30 to 40 games, I believe. And there's pretty much not that much development being had there, because it's kind of like most of these guys, like Anthony Edwards, for example, is more or less the same player he was coming into UGA than he is like leaving it right now. And like at first I was concerned for these guys because I thought they would be put onto normal G League rosters where if you don't watch G League, you wouldn't really know this, but guys down there are more about me than we, if that makes any sense. Guys are looking to make a name for themselves so they can get a call up or a contract with the team. And that means some of these prospects might not be getting the ball. Or I was kind of envisioning a situation where somehow if Jalen Green ends up on a G League roster, a G League guy, for example, like Troy Calpain or something like that, starts taking more shots, starts playing outside of himself because you know scouts are out there in stands watching him because they're out there to scout Jalen Green, which could hinder his development. If that makes any sense. I don't know if I articulated that well, but or it could lead to envy because these high school guys are making a lot more money than these G League guys are, and they're getting their education paid for. And these G League guys are probably just as good, if not better, than most of the high school guys right now. And that could lead to a negative locker room experience, which could be pretty bad for a guy that's 17, 18 years old that's just trying to figure out how to navigate this professional landscape. What they are doing is having these prospects play on a select team where there's nothing but prospects and old NBA veterans, I should say, that are way past their playing days, that don't have any egos or anything, and just have nothing better to do to help these young guys grow and fill out the roster. Probably not these players specifically, but like think guys like Vince Carter who are just super old. They're pretty much not really helping winning basketball much, or KG in his second Minnesota stint. But it looks like these prospects aren't even a part of the real G League. Like the games they're playing against G League teams don't count against the quote unquote real club's records. Those games are more or less exhibition games for both clubs. This team will play a minimum of like 12 to 15 games against these real G League teams, and the rest of the time it just seems like they're going to practice, get some development in, and play scrimmage games against some of the overseas developmental teams. Like, not this team in particular, but Mega Baymax or something like that, for example. Also, there's some guys who come into the NBA from college and are just like complete jackasses, or they blow their money, or just aren't ready to play professional basketball, like a Josh Jackson. The G League has put some contract incentives in for attending like community events or attending specific programs that will help these guys with their off the court development. And they'll get to travel like pros, be in pro facilities, and be around older men who can teach them how to operate in a professional environment for a year. And I'm sure that the G League, they can get a lot more specific, NBA specific, than like Coach K or Tom Izzo can at MSU or Duke. The pressure that I mentioned earlier that older, more experienced G League players were potentially going to be putting onto these Jalen Gruden's, Isaiah Todd's of the world, there's another side of the coin where it could benefit these prospects when it comes to their coaches. These coaches are just as hungry as anyone to get a spot in the big league. And so let's just say, for example, Zion went to the G League last year somehow, and everyone knows that Zion could not shoot and can't shoot. If he leaves the G League and its program with a serviceable jumper, maybe a team might think, dang, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn coming in, but after the G League, he can make open jumpers or something like that. And they took a look at that shooting coach and they potentially hire them. I don't know, but it seems like it's plenty incentive for these coaches and trainers to put 110% on developing these guys and cultivating a healthy culture and habitat for them to grow in this potentially volatile environment. All this being said, this select prospect team is going to get absolutely waxed going against these G League teams. G League is full of college standouts that just couldn't make the cut in the NBA or former overseas guys. And at a certain point, it's just kind of like Isaiah Todd is 18 years old, pretty thin. And let's just say Jonathan Motley, for example, he's 24 years old. There's just a major gap in size and strength where these quote unquote real G League leaguers are, for a lack of a better term, grown ass men. And these select team guys, like just a couple months ago, had to raise their hand and go to the bathroom. There's just a clear difference physically, and I hope NBA teams can parse through that on tape and statistically and see that, okay, maybe Todd isn't really as bad as the stats may say, although I don't really think he's that special, but he was just physically just like outmatched, and it's just clear that he just wasn't going to be able to hang there anyway. There's definitely a lot to unpack here, but eventually there will be no one and done rule, and then what? What was the point of this whole G League thing? I mean, maybe you could get some lower level guys. Like in this draft, for example, you could have got like a Devin Vassell coming out of high school that could have benefited from G League development because he was probably an NBA talent eventually, but he clearly was not good enough to get selected high or at all in the actual NBA draft coming out of high school. But hopefully this can start something sort of like how the EuroLeague has clubs specifically for player development, or teams I should say, specifically for player development. Kind of like how Real Madrid may have a B team or whatever that has more younger guys, good younger guys, and then they could potentially get called up to the A team. In this example, like the prospect teams would be the B teams, and the actual G League teams would be the A teams. Or it could be something like MLB, where you can draft a guy out of high school and then stash them stash them on one of those developmental rosters and just have them develop there. And like, this is not going to kill college basketball, because there's still guys like Marcus Howard, Luka Garza, Killian Tilly, or Obi Toppin, who is probably going to be top 6 in this draft, who just straight up pretty much required this this whole college experience, if you will. NCAA is probably going to miss out on a decent chunk of change, because these top guys might not end up going straight to college anymore. They might go overseas like LaMelo or RJ Hampton, or they might just stay home and go to the G League or something like that. So NCAA might miss out on pretty chunk of change, but I don't think it's going to kill them or anything like that, because the guys who are watching college basketball, like the non-guys like me or Mike or Jackson or something, like the non-weirdos that like to watch college basketball and scout, they're the guys that aren't like us, they're pretty much going to watch college basketball regardless. They're not watching it for these prospects. They're watching it because they genuinely enjoy the culture surrounding it. Because like in some of these small towns or something, that's all they have is a college basketball team, and that's their quote unquote professional sport, if you will. And I don't think that is going to really change, because these prospects aren't going there anywhere. So college basketball definitely just isn't going to just straight up die because of this, but it's definitely putting a dent into it. And I feel like this is just doing a really, really good job of getting money into the hands of these guys that deserve it. Because these college teams are clearly profiting off of these guys coming there. Like Zion, how much money did Duke and the NCAA make just off of Zion alone? Let alone his teammates RJ Barrett and to a lesser extent Cam Reddish. Like, they made a decent amount of money off of these kids and they saw none of it. Well, Zion, these guys got paid, but like, they could have been paid so much more had they gone the professional route. So, yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts. This is more of a freestyle video. Nothing was really scripted or anything. So, yeah. Like, comment, subscribe, leave comments down below on what you think and how you think this is going to develop. And if you think more guys are going to go to the G League or professional overseas route or anything like that. Thank you guys, and bye.